The Spine of Albion, the Discovery, the Dragon Force. One of the greatest unexplained and controversial mysteries of our time is the many alignments that link together sacred sites all over the UK and Europe called ley or ley lines. The discovery surrounding this subject has many landmarks, beginning with Alfred Watkins in 1921. He was the first to propose that certain landscape features, such as prehistoric earthworks and churches, seem to fall on visible alignments. He named them ley due to the frequency with which the word ley appeared in the many place names on the lines, such as Crossley, Endley and Longley. His controversial theory arose in a moment of vision while out riding his horse in Herefordshire. In a flash, he perceived the existence of a system of glowing lines intersecting at hills, churches and other sacred places. His research and findings, published in the Old Straight Tract in 1925, concludes with the revelation that prehistoric man constructed a system of aligned sites for the purpose of travel. Investigators of this phenomena have a rule that alignments or leys are only genuine if they pass through more than 4 mark points. These include hilltops, churches, megalithic stones, holy wells, unusual rock formations, crossroads, prehistoric camps and hill forts. The ley theory proposed by Watkins was criticised by many archaeologists at the time, who pointed out that given the high density of prehistoric monuments in Britain, a line drawn through any part of the country would inevitably clip a number of sites, especially large earthworks such as hill forts, henges and sculptured hills. They also ridiculed him for failing to explain why many of the trackways go over hills and mountains rather than around them. As a result, his work was unrecognised by the academic world. Watkins' research, however, was not confined solely to map work, for he mentions that experience and practice brings an insight which quickly spots a ley. Often one can be first seen on the map, but I more often see it out of doors in, quote, the lay of the land itself, and this before the mark points are found. In the 1960s and 70s, several New Age researchers changed the perspective of the ley mystery, suggesting that rather than trackways, these lines, in the words of Professor Elliot Smith, were a concrete expression of the divine power of life-giving energy. In 1969, John Mitchell published the most influential and inspiring book, View Over Atlantis, later revised as The New View Over Atlantis in 1983. His articulate writings on the subject of ley lines give an almost academic acceptability to the New Age, and he continued to enliven the debate further by likening the British ley system to the dragon lines of ancient Chinese tradition. His theories changed people's conception of the land as a living, breathing entity. He wrote, "It was recognized that certain powerful currents, lines of magnetism, run invisible over the surface of the earth. The task of the geomancer was to detect these currents and interpret their influence on the land over which they passed. The Chinese geomancers were trained in the art of astrology and the divination of the land, and were skilled in finding the most auspicious place to build shrines and temples for the emperors. They understood the life-giving qualities of the earth, serpents or dragons, and in certain places shaped their landscape to harness their energy, including spiritual harmony and aiding fertility within the land. The emperor's palaces and tombs were the only structures permitted on the Dragon Pass, thus ensuring the imperial leader power in life and death and the future success of his dynasty." For the Chinese, The dragon, or Lung Mei, was a symbol of this divine force containing either male, yang, or female, yin, properties. The male current, or white tiger, followed the high places such as mountain tops across the country, whilst the female current, or blue dragon, visited lakes, rivers, and springs deep in the valleys. With the aid of divining rods, a compass, and a vast knowledge of the celestial influences, the Chinese geomancer detected these paths of the dragon, constructing buildings so as not to interfere or block their natural flow. The sole purpose of this practice of Feng Shui was to bring order and beauty to the landscape. The geomancers were also skilled in channeling and directing the natural streams of earth energy to the imperial seat of the emperor. Many of the well-known lays travel only a few kilometers and often begin at landscape features such as mounds or sculptured hills. Longer lays that stretch over many kilometers are rare, and if plotted on maps often suffer from inaccuracies. The St. Michael line, first noticed by John Michel, is the most famous long-distance lay in Britain. It courses from Land's End in Cornwall to Hopton-on-Sea on the Norfolk coast, marked by numerous prehistoric sites and hilltop churches dedicated to St. Michael. Standing on one particular hill called the Mump near Boroughbridge in Somerset, Michel noticed its elongated shape points to the Tor, a prominent hill in Glastonbury, 16 kilometres, 10 miles away. On a map he discovered that this line extends eastward to pass through the great southern entrance stones of the Avebury Stone Circle in Wiltshire. Numerous churches dedicated to St. Michael and St. Mary stand along the whole length of the line, with many constructed either side of it, as if the builders of these sanctuaries were aware of a sacred corridor hidden within the landscape. This alignment of sacred centres and places of power also has a solar influence, for it is aligned to the Beltane sunrise and forms the longest east-west through route in Britain. Earth Mysteries researcher David Furlong, using Google Earth computer mapping, has since determined the accuracy of the St. Michael line. Furlong has given some thought to how the ancients surveyed this alignment, suggesting that they must have aligned it to the high points in the landscape. He says, setting out long-distance alignments is not so difficult, providing there is a sufficient number of workers and care is taken in the sighting of the alignment. The most obvious way to do this would be by sighting to the rising or setting of a specific star. Together with John Michel, many authors proposed that the Neolithic and Bronze Age peoples in Europe built their stone temples, earthworks, and barrows similar to the principles of the Chinese. They too had diviners to locate these hidden pathways, marking their route with standing stones, dolmens, stone circles, long barrows, and tumuli. As astronomers and astrologers, the Celts and their priesthood, the Druids, continued this tradition of tracing the emergence of the dragon force, manipulating and animating its fertilizing power required in the land. Ceremonial processions along these dragon paths created straight tracks, similar to those walked by later pilgrims visiting holy shrines. Michel refers to the St. Michael line as having the appearance of a via sacra, a sacred pathway between ritual centres, which is a feature of ancient landscapes throughout the world, and is supported by records of pilgrimage routes between places on the alignment.